to record this. We are now live in our newly created group, Weaving Wealth Women. Hi, Sherine. How
Hello.
exciting. It's like celebrating our birth of our upcoming 6 weeks course of grounding in essence and wealth. How exciting.
It is so exciting. I am so excited. It's amazing that we're now here finally. I know it seems a long time ago, but actually it's a really short time ago that we made a decision that we were going to actually run this course, wasn't it? You know, it's short in time, but it feels like it's been a long time in coming in a way.
Yes, true. I mean, for me, we were not even planning to do any courses. Well, it's all
No.
started when you followed also my passion, because I talked to you so much about the Royal School of Embroidery, which happens to be in London, and you live in London, and
Yeah.
we published our books. We already did an interview together in the Co-Creative Destiny group, speaking about the importance of the meaning of the names, which I also talk about in my book. And then we discovered, wow, so we share this passion for embroidery. And I remember like it was yesterday when we actually started to do this beautiful gold work embroidery set, which is from the Royal School of Embroidery of Needlework. It's called the Royal School of Needlework in London. And now we are both nearly finished. Like
We're nearly finished. This is me. This is me. As you can see, it's, whoops, I got to look this way. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there because actually my little journey has been a little bit slower, but it's been really fun now because initially there was a lot of stuff going on and I was doing many things, but now I'm on the track. I can see the end coming and I can see the beginning coming at the same time. But it's interesting because this was a passion that I had as a child. I loved embroidery and I got disconnected from my embroidery, you know. So I showed a while ago my my tapestry, which took me 20 nearly 30 years to complete, which is amazing, but it's got completed this year. And it really started me thinking again about what was so important in my life, which was about that meditative, that intentive kind of way of doing something you love and then just letting your mind create. And that was something that I had lost. So it was so nice when you said, oh, I'm doing this gold work. And I said, oh, this is something I want to do. Little did I know that we were going to be doing something that is so, we started co-creating, which was so wonderful.
Yeah, and for me, what was also very special was starting to weave the golden thread, which has got something very special. Like the last few years, I mean, I never embroidered. My story background was like I felt disconnected most of my life since my family came from Kazakhstan 32 years ago now. And after reading one of the Anastasia books by Vladimir McGree, which speaks about this old Ved Russian traditions, and one of the rituals, like she speaks about those dresses and where every symbol has got a deep meaning. And that's where I started my journey of remembering. And it never left me since 2017. It was when I actually attended a workshop on the island Rügen, where I started to embroider this Slavic traditional towel. It's called Rushnik. And this one is particularly, it's a destiny towel, where in a 1 week long workshop with this Russian embroidery master, I received my own symbols, and I was taught like this whole deep wisdom behind how we use the threads, and everything stands for our destiny, and about how we consciously can create destiny take into our own hands, like not putting knots inside, not cutting it because it stands for our destiny, our life thread. So that's when my journey inside of me
Yeah.
started. And this destiny towel is like a tree. It has got 3 worlds, like in Slavic tradition. It's the roots, the trunk, and the branches. And of course, also all shamanic traditions, the work with the tree of life. And that's when it started at
Yeah.
the root. It's like I received my symbolism of the like connected with divine energies which are like flowing through me, and that's where my journey started of getting back to my roots, where I felt disconnected and inside of myself, and through the practice of embroidery, which is so slow and meditative, the magic happens when we put ourselves in this meditative state and
Yeah.
consciously start to know, like, the thread stands for my life, and or the certain symbolism which are expressing themselves like through the roots or through my center, the trunk, or through the branches which are pulling me forward to fulfill my destiny, it becomes a very sacred practice. And I was hooked. Since 2017, I continue to finish like my destiny towel and my destiny dress, shamanic dress, and the whole embroidery has been most transformational for me. So that's why it's like so sacred. And as you know, I've published my book about it in April of this year, The Wyrding Way, which Wyrding stands for weaving. And it's also about the sacred wisdom of the known. So also bring the threads, past, present, and future together. So it continues. It's a deepening practice for me to the embroidery of getting more and more home to myself, or what is breathing me, what is the divine breathing through me. And then it continued. I remember watching this documentary, Aluna, where the indigenous Kogi people are going around and they're weaving like wounds into back into wholeness by holding the golden thread, and that hooked me.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
then I felt this urge, I have to do something with the golden thread, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yeah.
which is also like the connection to our soul, to the divine. And that's how it happened
Yeah.
on my own journey, that I was so fascinated to do this gold thread embroidery.
Yeah.
And yeah, so every step of this kind of sacred embroidery, uh, it's of going back to yourself, with your divinity, with your soul. And that's what happened with us, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like when we
Absolutely.
started.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I mean, we
Uh,
originally started because we were talking about crowdsourcing with our books, if we remember, but
yes.
it started to materialize into so much more. But something that you said just really triggered for me, which is you said we weaved the wounds together with your golden thread, or the particular Kogi tribe did. And immediately I started to get an image. And you and I both love symbolic language. We
Yes.
love symbols. We believe symbols are everywhere. And when we connect to these symbols, they shift and change things. So doing what we're doing is automatically interacting with the symbolic world in a very tangible way. But I immediately saw what happens, and I don't know whether you know how a clot forms, or how, because my background is in medicine and sciences and all those kind of things, which I love, but I got this, what happens in a clot is that you get the weaving of the fibrin threads that go through. And so that's what I started to see. I saw these fibrin threads of protein threads, so the blockchains of life came through, because proteins are the blockchains of life
Yes.
going through, and on which then all the cells or the platelets collect to. And I thought, oh my goodness, there's another metaphor which is so exciting, because it just makes it more, you kind of get a sense, and this makes sense why you would have this golden thread, and how you would weave wounds. And in your mind's eye, when you're working, you know that your body is actually doing the same thing inside.
Mhm.
What's on the outside is in the inside. And I think this week or last week we talked about, the idea that we have this somatotopic matching in our brain, if you remember,
Yes, I
where many
did.
people can have a look at the homunculus, which is really just talking about how the somatosensory and the motor sensory areas of the brain have a link, a one-to-one link between what's in here and what's on your body.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then there's this magic, which I know Joe Dispenza always talks about, is where it goes to the cerebellum, where it forms a map around our body. So whatever we do with our hands, if we do it with an intention in a particular way, we are directly shifting changes in our brain.
And that's what
So
I
we get,
find it so exciting,
yeah,
because this is how the science and mysticism coming
yeah,
together. And you
yeah,
actually have shown me the picture, which people can also just download on the internet. This how do you pronounce
the
Oimalculus?
homunculus, homunculus.
Oimalculus image, which
Mm,
is like, for me, like, what a big aha moment. It's like, there you can
yes,
see that the hands have got
yes.
like the biggest they are as big as the
The
brain,
hands and the
aren't they?
face, yeah.
The,
Mm,
the, the face and the hands have got the biggest connections to our brain. I mean,
yeah,
this is just so exciting to realize. It's like a coin drops. It's like, oh, so that's
I
what I'm
know.
doing. I'm not just doing embroidery. And
Exactly.
what I'm experiencing is like the divine weaving through me, and I'm connected to my life thread. This is not just like some kind of woohoo stuff.
No,
No,
no.
this is
It's
actually
grounded.
grounded and scientifically proven nowadays.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
what is happening there. And this is what I also find so exciting when we get together,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
also from this very scientific background, neuroscience background, and you're very knowledgeable also about the
Yeah.
quantum
Yeah. Yeah.
science. And whilst for me, like the title of my book, The Wyrding Way, it comes from a mystical, that's why like the subtitle of my book is The Mysterious Art of Weaving Your Destiny,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
Yeah.
came like, in a way, like a transmission by me opening
Mm.
up to receive the connection to my soul and the source. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm working with the runes, who are said to be carved by the Norns. And so I'm very connected to the Norns and
Mm.
to this energy, like to the runes or other form of symbolism, which are also secretly interconnected to the universe. I mean, there's the rune web of weird, which also was for me like another like way, like this, the image we talked earlier about
Yeah. Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
like the face and the hands have got the biggest connection to the brain. The rune web of weird shows all the lines. There are 9 dimensions which make up our universe. And these are also found in all the runes of the Elder Futhag. And it also dropped for me. And it comes from the center, which is nothingness. There's the
Yeah.
rune of weird is nothing.
And
And the
everything.
web forms everything from these 9 different lines dimensions. So there's also a link to the 9 dimensions from the World Tree Yggdrasil, for example,
Mm.
or like the Bagua in Taoist tradition. Human
Yeah.
design has got 9 dimensions. And there I see these links also to all different, like, to all different, um, yeah, wisdom schools or
Kabbalah
perspectives.
does
And
9. So the Vala comes down and then it goes back
yes,
up. So it's always like a circle or a whirl thing going into areas that are bigger and bigger and bigger, expanding, but there's always coming back to the central point. So there's always 9 points. Yeah. So that the number 9 is a very significant number. And we know that very often 9 is kind of in a sense of completion. In a way, it's about a journey where you're working towards completion, towards becoming whole again. And as you start to become whole and reconnect to your source, then you expand again into complexity within this wholeness. So each time now you expand more and more in a very, very different way, because now you've connected to your wholeness. So every time, we're working from that intention of understanding who we are, where we are, and we're able to connect with that, with our weird or our source, or that infinite. And I think, we're talking about something that's everything, but actually within the nothing is the infinite potential.
Exactly.
It's the
It's like
infinite
this weird,
potential.
I mean, this is so easy, I think, to follow. It's like in nothingness, like the rune of weird is nothing. Everything is contained, like the all, everything. And that's where the mystic wisdom of the knowns has brought for me like this embodied experience. Yeah, which is like, for me, wisdom is embodied knowledge. Like I
Yeah,
always looked in so many different directions. I always loved to read, but it always felt very like theoretical. I didn't know how
yeah,
to apply it in my own life. It's like, what does it mean for me? What is my person, why I'm here on this planet? And I always felt lost. I felt uprooted. I didn't know my
yeah,
thread. And it only made sense when I reconnecting, like it's this invisible thread, which is like the umbilical cord, which then secretly connects you to the soul and source. And then it made so much sense to me. Yeah, like
yeah.
those runes are no longer just symbols or
Well,
an
they're living.
alphabet. They're living for me.
They're
Like I
living.
really connect to those energies and I feel them. I feel them in my
Yeah,
life. Yeah, and that's where we continue to embroider as well. I started to embroider the matryoshkas, like where there are also the runes, and we can always go deeper to really connect with those energies which are weaving through us, and they're
yeah,
very individual because our destiny threads are very individual, and if we can go deeper, we can discover our own symbolism, our meaning of our names, the numerology,
yeah.
Kabbalah, or like the weird, and dive more and more deeper about our unique destiny, what we came here to fulfill.
Yeah, and we're in an unprecedented time right now, aren't we? We're in a time now where we've got so much knowledge, and yet it's not embodied yet.
Yes.
And because we've got this knowledge, we've been living so much in our head, and that's I kind of went to my head because that was the way I thought I needed to be able to succeed and survive in the world. And in general, that's a very forceful way of looking at the world.
Mm.
But it's not a way of looking at the world that's very much receptive necessarily, because it's often didactic. It's putting out instead of bringing in and letting that mix to create something new, something different. And that was interesting because we were talking today about why it was different. So for me, I've had interesting things about what was what was a challenge for me, and one was the plunging. If you remember, we have to plunge the golden thread through the material to the other side so that we
Yeah.
can put the threads together and bring them together in kind of a collective and then seal them. All
Yes.
right. So that was really hard for me because I kind of somehow had missed a part. But then what was really interesting is he said, but I've stopped using the stand, which was so interesting. And while I was doing the plunging, I realized, well, what if I just held from here and pulled from here, from my
Mm.
heart? And wow, that just made me think, I'm pulling from my essence. I'm pulling these threads and I'm giving these threads. I'm pulling through me to you. And that then started to make me feel more whole, more from the sense of I want to give because I'm feeling that I'm connected to that source. And so that was something that really came up for me with this. And nobody's going to do this perfectly. It's going to be unique.
No,
We
no.
are we are perfect in the sense of the source, but we're living in an imperfect body.
Mm.
So that doesn't mean that I won't try and make sure that it looks nice and that I want to look at it and it's pleasing, because when you come from your source, you want to do your best, but you don't do your best from the case of fear. You do your best because it's just the natural thing you do.
Oh, so
You
beautifully
just
said.
do it. Yeah. And that was such a revelation. And I think women need to, understand, we all need to understand that we are growing exponentially in our sovereignty as we begin to do and work with the weird, as we begin to work with the source. We start to expand more and more. And it was interesting that whereas before I used to think about sovereignty as being boundaried, I realized that in actually to be truly sovereign, you don't need to be boundaried. Basically, it's like the sun that stands on its own light, and it doesn't matter whether it rains or shines, or whether you go to sleep and the sun's shining on the other side. The sun shines irrespective. So when your essence is shining irrespective, it doesn't matter, because everybody knows that your sun is shining,
Yes.
and
Or
your
like
essence is
your,
that.
your golden thread, which stands here for your unique
Yeah,
genius.
exactly.
If it's weaving, then yeah, and we're doing it more consciously. I think the transformation happens with the embroidery practice, for example, to get back to that. It's not just creating beauty and art, it's about deepening the consciousness. And
Yes.
we all know also from the science, 99% lies actually in the power of the unconscious, which for
Yeah,
me is the
the
weird, is
connection.
this unknown, yeah, where we know it's like the big womb of all existence, everything gets born out of it, galaxies, we as babies get born from the womb, which is like this weird. So we know how much potential has got, but the magic happens if we consciously tap into this 98, 99%
Percent. Mm.
of the weird. And the more we consciously connect, like to our thread, what is expressing through me, what is the deep symbolism expressing through me, because we are always connected with the divine, even if we sometimes feel we are not. Yeah, because like you said, in our bodies we are always imperfect, but on the higher dimensions we're always connected to our soul
Yeah.
and the source. And once we find ways of how to tap into that and to bring this 98, 99% of full potentials as conscious co-creators into existence, this is the art of the nuance, like, or what I like to pass on to other people through a practice like embroidery. And this is how it
Yes.
happens, like where we started to go to the essence.
Yes.
When we started in the middle, we already started to talk like, oh, but this is our center. What is my center? What is my essence? How it is expressing to me? And this is how our journey of co-creation, of joining genius started, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yeah, it was.
And
It was, exactly. And it's really lovely to see, because I'm glad that you finished yours, because now people can see what it's like. And not that we're going to be doing gold work on the program, but what we are going to be doing is helping you connect to that essence, so that you can use it ongoingly in your life, so that you can weave your life, basically weave your destiny. And I love your destiny weaving on your picture, because it is about women together, and even men as well will weave, and we're weaving our futures together. We're creating, and creating a web that allows so much information to pass through and communicate. And then the space in between, as more and more and more people connect, those spaces will get smaller and smaller and smaller, because you will get more and more denseness of those connectivities. And
yes.
people will literally know each other's minds. We won't even need to talk. We will know, because we're already in that space of knowing.
Mm,
And it'll be like we will be talking essence to essence.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
without the inter language of the word. Yeah, because bringing it down, bringing it up has so many different things, because as we are in a body, the body in a way is a filter. It's where we've been programmed. So when we're just in essence, heart to heart, or essence to essence, I'd say soul to soul more than the physical heart to heart, because it's deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
It's deeper than the heart. It's whoa, it's like you go way back. And it's like, oh, this is the core, this is the center, this is when I'm at source. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the most
And
magic
that's when you're powerful.
yeah.
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 That because you're co-creating in that space. You understand the laws. You understand that intention. You're at the pace where you don't, before you've even intended it, it's happened.
Mm. Yeah,
There's a wacky you.
what I also find so beautiful, like then you go on a real journey, like
Yeah.
home inside. And whatever is then emerging, it's for
Mm.
us to see, to look
Yeah.
at, either incorporate or to let go, to cut away. It's like, I know, like I mentioned in my Destiny Towel, I was taught not to cut away the thread. But in our practice, for example, it's important to consciously sometimes to let go of things and to cut away things which no longer serve us. But what I wanted to say is, like, following our genius thread is not always like shiny people, happy, clappy people. It's whatever's going to come up. It's for us to be looked at. For you, you mentioned the
Yeah.
planching brought up blocks, and
Yeah.
you were looking at at your um, limiting beliefs or sabotaging beliefs of
Yeah. The perfectionist.
of perfectionism. For me, for
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
example, this practice, in co-creation with you with the gold work embroidery, brought up like my relationship with authority. I mean,
Mm.
I'm quite a rebellious kind of areas, and I like sometimes to do it my own way. Yeah, like people know the areas with their heads against the wall if it has to be. Yes, so for me to follow the rules, it's sometimes very difficult. So it brought up for me already from the very beginning this rejection, but I don't
Yeah. I
want to do that. I
remember.
just learned like my own way of embroidery and to go with the flow and that. And here you have to follow certain guidelines, yeah. And I was struggling with that. And for me, it was like an invitation to look at that. So it's
Yeah.
not just it's shiny and I create beauty. So like, no, but when this is going to come up, this is for us to look at. What is my relationship with this? In my case, it was authority. For you, it was like how to deal with perfectionism in this moment.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
it was a fantastic journey for me. It
Yeah.
took some weeks. At the same time, my son started a new school. So it brought up this whole like limiting beliefs about schools and authority, where you also have to follow rules, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was my own healing journey, like of reweaving a healthier way of how to deal with
Yeah.
authority, which can
Mm.
also build, if taken consciously, they build a great foundation. Like it has shown me how to do this practice of the gold work. Like I came to such an amazing a conclusion that my son is now started a new secondary school,
Yeah.
which is a big next step in life. And we decided that he's going to go to a German French school, which is very strict and it's very hard with a lot of work.
Rules.
But lots of rules. But having undergone my own journey at this time and looking like what is the best for him, for us as a family,
Yeah.
I discovered my love for good rules and systems which build the riverbed or like the foundation, and we cannot do
Exactly.
it without that. I mean, he plans to be a Lego designer, yeah, and for that he has to open his YouTube channel, he has to speak well English, French, because his dad is Moroccan, he lives in France,
Mm.
he's constantly in Morocco, so he needs to speak French,
Yeah.
Arabic, English, if he wants to fulfill his highest goal.
Mm. Mm.
And then through this journey, we all came to the
Yeah.
conclusion, he himself made the conclusion, then this is
Yeah.
the way to follow, even if it's really hard. He is now 3 weeks in and it's already a lot of homework. It's hard. The
Yeah.
same,
But
like
he,
it was hard for me to sit at the beginning and to follow the rules. You have to do it exactly this way. But happily, what happens, like at this stage of planching you told about,
yeah,
that's where I can
you
use
found your own.
my creativity, because I found my own way, which worked really well. But it would not have been possible because I would not even got to this stage. Would I have not
Yeah.
followed first the rules, like of the building the foundation and the grounding of good systems and good rules? So it taught me to discern and to differentiate about like this old school, just authority, like it's only goes this way or no way.
Mm.
And that is important in life to have good discipline, good foundations. And yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's really important. I think that from a, I mean, just talking from a neurological experience, we need to build the foundation. You know, things we're designed to change, even though we prefer to stay the same in some ways. So some patterns are always staying the same and some want to change, but our body wants to evolve. It's always wanting to express itself in a different way. It wants the creator within us, the source within us is here to experience, to learn, to expand. That's exactly what it's about. And so your point about structure, which was so important, I do remember, because I said, oh, don't worry, I'll go and get it and we'll do it together. And what happened was, I remember you used to be a athlete. You used to be a tennis player, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you already had forgotten that you needed to learn all those first steps in order to be great at a tennis player. So in order for you to be in flow, you needed to structure first to be in flow. Because once you have that grounding, you can then do things. You can then be free to express yourself because you've already got the bit that's holding you
Mm.
together. Yeah. And then you kind of move and do other things. So I think that's really important. That's why the first part of our course is grounding in your essence, grounding yourself, coming to the heart, to the room, bringing yourself, saying, here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am. I'm grounding myself here. And every time, I think what I've started learning even more is that every time I look at I start working, I'm thinking I'm grounding here. I'm grounding my essence. So it doesn't matter what else happens because I let my mind decide where it's going to go, but I'm grounding with the first steps of giving an intention or giving a concept that I can work with, because I know then my brain is, my hands are free and it's taking up a huge part of my brain.
Mm.
So I already know that I'm doing something and I'm thinking and I'm smiling. So the face and the hands use a huge area of somatotrophic area in the brain. And so therefore I must be really connecting lots of areas within my brain.
Mm.
So that's why weaving works so well, because the moment we allow ourselves to direct down with an intention with the needle, we then are shifting here already. And that has already got changes in the whole of our body, because remember I talked about this 3D map that
Mm.
we have. So every cell of us gets touched.
Mm.
And I think I love that. I love the idea that when we're doing that, we are touching every cell. Every cell,
Wow.
we're informing it. We're pushing our divine thread through each cell and we are interlinking them. We're reminding them of what their job is. Yeah. We're reminding them what their job is, of what they've got to do. Yeah. And that's how it brings in health. Yeah. Because it's giving information to the cells and getting information back from the cells. So we get that kind of information, and we have this feedback, feed forward, feedback, feed forward. And I think it's just amazing that just simply, and it's really curious, doing it with intention, just noticing my perfectionist streak coming out again really made me aware of how easy it is to go into that pattern again,
Mm,
and how important it is to notice,
mm,
and then say, this is a sacred moment.
yes.
And we're talking about it being a sacred practice.
And that everything is welcome, because when everything is interconnected, then everything is welcome. And when this
Yeah.
sabotaging belief is going to come up, then it's that for us to reweave into the wholeness just by simply looking at it. I mean, it's like a loving mother would
Mm.
consciously like embrace her child, no matter what the child has done.
Yeah.
Like we embracing it with this unconditional love and awareness, and then it's allowed to be there. I mean, I'm proud of my rebellious nature, Aries nature.
Mm.
It's absolutely welcome. But how much more whole do I feel that I have got a new tool of like, wow, yes, I have been a professional sportswoman, and I love discipline for good things, or the systems, choosing consciously rule systems and discipline for bringing me higher, further in life.
Yeah.
It's like, for me,
Exactly.
since I love to work with the threads, and that's what the nuns are doing. The nuns have woven everything in the physical realm. So it's becoming more and more of a nun ourselves. It's like holding all the different threads together.
Yeah.
Instead of being pulled in all different directions from the outside, I'm holding the thread consciously because
Mm.
I'm the creator. So even if that doesn't serve me very well, or that is going to come up, but when I consciously bring it, I'm holding the thread, becomes more powerful. Like we become whole
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
creators.
You've mentioned the knowns quite a few times. Maybe can you give people a little bit of an idea what the knowns are? Because just I know that this is our first kind of live and we're just kind of talking about this, but I think it might be helpful just to kind of give them an idea, because I know you said the past, present, future, but there's something about each of them, and maybe it
Mm.
might be a good idea just to give a little clip about it.
Yeah, the Norns and Norse mythology uh, are said to have woven the whole physical realm. They sit at the root of the world tree Yggdrasil, and they're holding the threads. Like one is the Urt, she's holding the threads of the past, and there is the one for the present, Vedanti, and one for the future, she's called Skuld. And all together they're sitting also at the holy well called Urdbrunnen, and they water the world tree Yggdrasil every day with the water. And they're also said to have carved the runes. So they're, for me, the most powerful creatures which I came across in my life,
Mm.
because they've got the wisdom of the deep well, like
Mm.
unlimited wisdom, and then the connection with the runes from the world tree, which has also got the 3 dimensions of from the roots, trunk, branches, which is the lower world, this physical realm, and the divine realm. So they are like creatures, they are called to be giantesses, who hold it all together, like they hold the whole
Yeah.
world, the physical realm, in their hands. So they're
Yeah.
very, very, very powerful.
Yeah, and I think what's really lovely is this idea that everything, the past, present, and future, they're all there grounded at the same source, which means that in that space, everything is now, because it's in the space of past, present, future. It exists at that now, and the fact that they water the tree. So that's really important. And I think when we talk about, at some point, we're going to talk about ritual, we're going to talk about all sorts of stuff, how to help magic grow in a very, very different way. There really is about how do we nurture that? How do we take that kind of responsibility, and how do we allow that to be in existence in the way that it is? So I think this is a really beautiful, beautiful metaphor, and not just a metaphor. It's a living tree, isn't it? It's a living well. It's how we
Yes.
are as a connection to all of those three. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and I love to work with embodied metaphors on my own journey of becoming a certified soul-based coach. in my sessions, what has emerged as the finalized embodied metaphor was exactly that. Like the three nones, the word Yggdrasil and the well. And what brings it alive is like that each action, each symbolism in it has got a deep, deep meaning. Because like we ourselves can also go every day to our unlimited deep wisdom well to
Yes.
receive all the answers. We can stay alive by watering ourselves as a tree, which we as bodies have also got roots, trunk, and
Yes.
branches, a lower, a middle, and a higher self. And how powerful, like we talked earlier, if we take things into our hands in a conscious, intentional way, then each action becomes like very intentional. Like we are literally weaving our own destiny and reality. And it's not like being 98, 99% in the subconscious. No, we use all tools, all elements, everything to be as powerful as the knowns, for example.
Exactly. We're going back and we're connecting with our inner knowing. I love that. I know that I'm doing a play on words now because people will learn that I love words. But if we're going to the knowings, our inner knowing, our knowing is there. So we go to our past, present, and future inside us. We go to that inner knowing that sits at the wellspring of our inner tree, and we begin to weave that. As we water that, as we weave what comes out, and we drink from it, and we and literally create the world with those, bring into materialization those symbols, because the symbols were the first creation in a way of letting us know what is the outside in a form that we could then communicate to everybody else. So that was when we changed, in essence, from being just kind of animals. In a way, we moved up to becoming our beginning of our potential. Yeah. So that's really something that's very important. But it is that we're going back to the knowns. We're going back to what we already are, source. We're going back to source. So we're going back to our knowing, what we know to be true. We've just forgotten it along the way.
Yes.
We're already sovereign.
Like we have forgotten that we are connected. Like we have lost
Exactly.
the connection to the threads, like we are experiencing both in our lives, where
Yeah.
it really feels, I feel more separated. Like I can read about it, but if I don't feel the connected, then it doesn't matter what I do or what I read, and it doesn't bring me satisfaction because I feel literally separated from my soul or the source. And so, but luckily there are practices of how we can go back and to reconnect to what is already all inside of us. It's like
it's there. It's there. And it's just these layers of conditioning, layers of, as our brain develops, we look at things and we begin to move away from what we know as a child. To enter the kingdom of heaven, we need to be childlike.
yes.
And I think people think that we've got to be as simple as a child. Well, yes, but no, we've got to be like a child, which is open and willing to explore, willing to just shine from our essence alone, just shine from our essence. And when we are in that place, that's, children, their world of imagination is very real.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
real.
so
They can't
connected to
tell
this dream world.
yeah,
Yes.
they can't tell the difference between reality and what is constructed. Yeah, they can't tell that difference. And in actual fact, that's where magic happens. We
Yes.
have to go back to the place where it all is exactly the same. Because when we go into it exactly the same, then it is the same. Yeah, it is. And so
Yeah.
you could heal, you could do anything because there is no separation in that moment. It is at
Yeah.
that infinite, it's at all in the nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in the weird.
It's in the weird.
the
and it's whirling
quantum, the
around in the weird.
quantum and the weird. And yeah, so important what you say. And we as adults who have got so many programming limiting beliefs, we just have to unlearn to have this fresh minds, like the Buddhists call it the beginner's mind, like of the children who don't have the separation between this world or the dream world or the higher self world. I mean, they get disconnected from when we
From
grow older,
conditioning.
then
Yeah,
we pick up so many different conditioning. And that's what I also think means, like we have to become as children, like this beginner's mind. And we are as adults, yeah, we need tools like shamanic journeying, yeah, like in soul-based coaching, clean language is like the metaphors magic. The metaphors is also going inside to our imaginal realm, the dream
yeah.
realm, where all the healing is already just there. It's our
It's
own,
already there. It's
yeah,
already there.
it's
We just
already
have to
there.
access it. Mm,
Exactly. But
yeah,
because we've forgotten it, we need those tools, like how to enter this world, like the dream world, or like this inner
yeah,
world of soul wisdom. And yeah, and what happened with us, like in our embroidery, that's why we started to talk about, and that's where we realized, oh my God, this is what brings us transformation whilst we
mm,
are embroidering. And this is how the idea emerged to pass it on to others, isn't it? It's not just like
yeah,
talking about it
exactly.
like we do now, but also show others how to embroidery and how to ground ourselves in the essence, like we started in the very middle, in the center. We like to show it to other women to go on their
Yeah,
own journey of grounding themselves in their essence. Yeah, and that's how the idea emerged, to do some workshops around it, which we plan to do next week. So like 3 days workshop, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
yeah.
always between 8 and yeah, like
8 UK time, and I think it's a 9 internet, yeah, middle Central European time. I think it is,
yes,
isn't it? Yeah. And we'll do half an hour, and then a master class on the Wednesday for 2 hours, I think it is. And
maximal two
there we'll,
hours, yes, like
yeah, then we'll
1:30
do,
to 2 hours. And
yeah,
that's where you can really get to know our work, because during the master class we do a meditation where you yourself can meet your goddess. and
yeah,
and then we would like to invite you to come on a 6 weeks journey with us, where the goddess which you meet, and the messages and the symbolism, which is totally unique for each one of us. And then we can really ground it, which means like embroidering your own matryoshka. The matryoshka is
yeah.
a folk doll in the Slavic tradition, and she owns all your wisdom. So yeah, and that's why we would like to invite you to come with us.
And be able to do this with us. Because I think that this is an art that's been lost. A lot of women have moved away from doing, I know a lot of people do a lot of painting, but this is very different in the sense of the senses and how we're using very tiny bits of our fingers, which is actually, these are where the most of our nerves, somatotypic nerves, the more area is of our little fingers, of the tips of our fingers. So we know that when we're doing a lot of work that's very finely detailed, that gives a concentration, but it also means that our brain is actually working more profoundly on those patterns that we want to work with. So we're actually getting our body to do even more, more quicker transformation in a strange kind of way. So I think that that's a really beautiful thing to be thinking about in essence of how, how embroidery definitely works. And, I mean, of course, I love doing the quantum, and I love the neuroscience, and I love the weird, because the weird is just wonderful. But I think the thing that really came up for me over the past few weeks is about the growing into the sovereignty even more. But what was even really connecting is that embodied sense of essence. And I think it's been, I have kind of just kept going back to that source and kept going into that place. And although I noticed all these things that came up, we stayed there. I stayed there. And that was the really wonderful thing, is to notice that as that block went, and it was interesting, the first thing you said to me today was, well, what allowed you to be able to just start going so fast now?
Mm-hmm.
And it was really because I had now overcome that block. I had seen the truth of that block. And I had connected with that source, which is actually, when you're in this place, perfection isn't even an issue. It really is that you're just doing the best that you can,
Yes.
that you're just enjoying what you're doing. And I think that was really, you're not doing this to be perfect. You're doing this. Yeah, you're doing this to make a change. And that just, it just, I can feel my heart just go woo right now, which is really fun, because I love to have that amount of energy to experience that. But I loved, and what I really noticed, and I'm very conscious of now, was the cutting of the thread.
Mm-hmm.
Because I loved that you said that, and you tell us that tale, because it is about realizing when you're cutting things that you're consciously cutting,
Mm-hmm.
that you're choosing your length of thread. How long do you want to make it? And know that sometimes a too longer thread is going to get knotted up.
Mm-hmm.
I had lots of knots. Or you go for shorter threads, and you can then, have less knots. So how are you going to negotiate and navigate your world, knowing the length of thread that's going to be your ideal thread with which to work with? That was quite profound for me.
Mm. And it's
So
representative of our next step in life.
exactly.
Because a lot of times we feel like insecure, like we don't know where it goes, in which direction. But if you just focus on your soul-aligned next step, and this is representative of the thread,
Yeah.
how long should it be? And there are also techniques you don't need a knot at all. You can just put it in without a knot.
Yeah.
This feels more soul-aligned to you, then choose your length wisely, whether you want a dot or whether a knot, or not a knot. And this is all what it requires, a conscious next step in life. And if we do it more and more, like in our lifetime, like through disciplined actions, like we can learn through embroidery, this becomes a way of life. Then we
Exactly.
no longer have to withdraw and really think and sit and meditate. No, it becomes a way of life.
And
That's
it
what,
becomes your daily meditation.
yes, and that's
It's your
why the
daily
title of my book,
meditation.
The Wyrding Way, is the weaving way. And this is like conscious weaving. And then it's not a mysterious art anymore. It's just a way of life, how to do it in a natural way. Just take the next thread in a conscious way. Just take the next step in a conscious, soul-aligned way. And then it becomes actually a beautiful tapestry.
It does. It does. Before long, it's already there, which is really interesting. And you move fast in some points and you move slow in others. And it really is about noticing, isn't it? It's about noticing what's going on. And also where you let your creativity, which was so wonderful, where you said, oh, well, I realized I could do this way with plunging. And it was so weird. Yeah, okay, I hadn't realized I hadn't found the damn needle, which they had given us. So it was so interesting to see the differences between how each of us approached it. And the exact same thing. And I loved that. And I think it's really going to be curious about how each woman that comes on the course is going to learn their unique way of being, what they're going to notice, how that's going to open up, how that's going to allow them to blossom, how that's going to allow them to ground, all those stages that we need to go through, that as we go step by step by step, you learn to envelop. And flow happens when we're in the structure. Yeah.
Yes, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful because, yeah, the flow happens in the structure. This was my biggest lesson.
Yeah.
My biggest blockage was at the beginning. It's like to really get into the flow, but integrating the structure and falling in love with
Yeah.
necessary structure, which also brought us to the next theme when we started to embroider, is like the wealth creations. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
certainly not there yet, like, but I definitely feel my soul wants to be free and decide on my own terms. I want to be like a financially free entrepreneur. So what has come up for us is also like weaving wealth. Yeah, and how
Yes.
can we use what we learn from this intentional weaving to apply it on a zone, yeah, which can be really improved in my world. And I'm not there yet, but doing that together, that's why
Yeah.
we set up the group Weaving Wealth of women, and it's also to set our focus, which builds a foundation structure. How can we successfully also create wealth in our own
Yeah.
lives?
And how do we do that for others? Yeah, because this is really about how we're learning, how we're growing, we're giving and sharing at the same time, because we want people to come along with us. We want people to come along and be there. We want you to be there with us so that you can do the same thing too, and really expand this. And I am so grateful because I went back to my weaving. I had really lost that, and it was like a real coming home when I started. And it was, I thought, how come? Here I want to go and meditate and sit quietly, but actually I can meditate and sit quietly doing a sacred act and have an intention in that act. And that just opened me up and reminded me of when I was a child and when I did all the embroidery when I was a child.
Mm.
So it just reconnected me straight back to something that was so important. And it really reconnected me back to the essence, but also to my deep spiritual beliefs about God, about life, about everything. And all of those I've started talking more about that in the sense of essence, and what I've always believed, which I was brought up Catholic, so oh my God, the things that I was believing was not right according to
Mm.
the church.
Yeah.
But I knew that, but when I started telling people about that, they just didn't understand. When I kind of said something like, God is in everything, even the rock, and someone said, well, I can't believe that God's in the rock. Well, I said, actually, it's part of the kingdom. It's part of the earth. It's part of everything. Essence is in everything. Energy is in everything.
Yes.
And that was really a key for me. And now that I can talk from that space, and actually that allowed me through this, because when this sat on my heart, it was
Mm.
sitting here. Yeah. And it's kind of like saying, oh, there's the sun shining through. So for me, that was a really big thing. So I wonder, and I'm curious how others are going to grow and experience their essence
Yes.
and bloom and bloom.
And bloom.
That's what we want for you. Yeah, that's what we want for you.
Yeah, so beautiful how you describe it. And it's like how it starts with the first stage and grows like into the flower of life. Like we thought also that
Exactly.
this is beautiful symbolism. Like it starts with a seed, and from the seed, each petal
Mm-hmm.
opens up and becomes and blossoming more and more into
Yeah,
full abundance.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we can only say whoever feels and here's the
Come and
calling
join us.
and feel and join us next week on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 8 p.m.
UK time.
UK time and 9 p.m. It's the Central European time. We will do a workshop where you can get to know us better. There will be like live calls. We will do them into this group as well, stream them live like we just did now. And yeah, please come and
Yes,
weave
please
together with them.
come and be with us. Come and be with us. We'd love to have you. And I know that just embracing this aspect of yourself will give you lots of ways why it would work, and we'll deepen that. And I think the most important thing is that this is about connecting to your essence. So the more you cannot not connect if you're doing something with conscious intent. And this is the real key. There's a conscious intent that's going to manifest in an outward tangible. We're doing a physical to change an internal, to then create an external. It's this inward, outward, definitely this aspect of always moving out within, out within. And I think that is, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you may as well come and do it with us now and let it happen quicker. So Monday night, and it's Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night, and Monday nights we're about a half an hour, isn't it? We're just coming in, and then on Tuesday, coming in for another half an hour, and then on Wednesday we're doing the master class for between an hour and a half, maybe some questions after that, maybe 2 hours max,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll talk a little bit about what's the next step for you if you like what we do, and you are intrigued, yeah. And we look so forward to having you there on Monday night with us.
Yes, like I always like to say, begin to weave, and the divine will provide the thread.
Provide the
And
thread.
all starts with the intention. Just come and weave
Exactly.
together with us.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's the most beautiful thing, and the divine will provide the thread, the connection. Yeah, it's so wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll go away with that thought right now.
Yeah, I feel blessed and
Yeah.
send many blessings. Благодарю in Russian. Many blessings.
Take care. Namaste.
Namaste.